Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Salutations to Ramana, who shines as the self in every being. On behalf of Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, I welcome you all for this Saturday evening satsang. We begin the satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by the chanting of Ramana's Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji.
Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Sheshivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadhanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarva Vangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namasatvikam Shivam Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Ekam aksharam hrudi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yaham maham iti sakshat atmarupena bhati hृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलन आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयव जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्ततभावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव कोऽहं भावयुत कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the chanting of a few verses from Upadesa Saram, which will be done by Kumari Uma and Srimati Ashwini Balaji.
नमो रमण। कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं कृतिमहो ददौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाङ्मना कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगत ईषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिबृहद्देवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्दत चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समं सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परं वेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमत भावशून्यसत् भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मन स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम्। नमो रमण।
In this part of the satsang, we have an offering of Ramananjali Sangeetam, a song offered by Savitri Krishnan and Jayasriram Krishnan, followed by a song by Kumari Revathi Shankar.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. We are celebrating Sadhu Om Swami's centenary this year. We thought we will, in addition to the bhajan or a song we render, include some verses from Sadhu Om Swami's Sri Ramana Aksharamanamalai starting this week. Typically, we will render either at the beginning of the bhajan or at the end of the bhajan, 6 verses each week. Sadhu Om Swami is one of the most prolific writers on Bhagavan. He was blessed by Bhagavan in addition to his contemporaries like Sri Guruganar, with the immense blessing of Bhagavan to write so many poems, coin so many songs on Bhagavan. Virtually that 1 out of every 3 songs that we render in Ramanacentre will invariably be that of Sadhu Om's.
கருணை கடல் எந்தன் கண் கண்ட தெய்வம் அருணாச்சல ரமண ஆசான் திருவடியில் செந்தமிழின் அக்ஷரத்தால் சீர்மாலை சாற்றிடவே தந்திமுக நின்னருளைத்த நமோ ரமணாய நமோ ரமணாய நமோ ரமணாய நமோ 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 ரமணாய நமோ ரமணாய நமோ ரமணாய நமோ 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 ரமணாய நமோ ரமணாய நமோ रमणाय नमो 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 रमणाय नमो रमणाय नमो रमणाय नमो नमो अहमहमात्मा स्फुरणस्वरूप अरुणाचलने नमो नमो अरुणाचल स्मरणानंद बोध अरुणमणाय नमो नमो अतिथययालन तगनटराजा आत्मा रमणा नमो नमो आदियुमन्तियुमन्तमिला पेरकण्ड वडिवा नमो नमो इन्दिरन् मालयन् ईश्वरनान एकस्वरूप नमो नमो ईश्वर मूवरिन् इदय विलास रमणाय नमो 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 रमणाय नमो रमणाय नमो 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 रमणाय नमो नमो வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் கிழக்கின்ற நடமாடி விட்டான் உள்ளம் கிழக்கின்ற நடமாடி விட்டான் வேறு கதியின்றி பதியாகி விட்டான் வேறு கதியின்றி பதியாகி விட்டான் வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் யாதொன்றும் அறியாத என்னை தனக்கால் என்று கொண்டேற்ற பின்னை யாதொன்றும் அறியாத என்னை தனக்கால் என்று கொண்டேற்ற பின்னை ஏதொன்றும் இல்லாமல் வைத்தான் பின்னை ஏதொன்றும் இல்லாமல் வைத்தான் நான் என்று உரைப்பேன் இதைத்தான் நான் என்று உரைப்பேன் இதைத்தான் வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் கண்ணார மனமார கண்டேன் என்னை கரை சேர்க்கும் கலமாக கொண்டேன் கண்ணார மனமார கண்டேன் என்னை கரை சேர்க்கும் கலமாக கொண்டேன் எண்ணாத துயிலாத நாட்டில் எண்ணாத துயிலாத நாட்டில் வாழ எளிதான வழியொன்று காட்டி வாழ எளிதான வழியொன்று காட்டி வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில் தானாக வரமொன்று ரமணேசன் தந்தான் வாழ்வில்
ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய.
नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय. I'm also going to present one more song written by Sadhu Om Swami. This is a Kannada translation by Dr. N.S. Lakshminarayana Bhatta. In this song, Sadhu Om Swami says, once we are surrendered to Bhagavan, he removes all the darkness and ignorance within us. How does he do that? And how do we know that? His actions prove that to us. His leelas in our lives, every moment which happens, every moment which reveals his leela, his actions is very clear to us. And he has made a decision to protect us. He has made a decision to take us beyond all this bondage. How does he do that? Sometimes he pushes us into difficulties, and then it seems that we are in difficulty, but he's always there at the back of our difficulties, and he brings us like the boatsman who protects the people who are drowning in the ocean. Even before I can know about myself, he has made a decision to protect me, and he has made a decision to be my guru, my teacher. I present to you a song written by Sadhu Om Swami. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಬಾನು. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ನಿನ್ನ ಲೀಲೆಗಳೇ ಹೇಳುತ್ತಿವೆ ನನ್ನ ಒಲಿದೆಯೆಂದು, ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಕಾಯಲು ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸಿ ಕಾಡುತ್ತಿರುವೆಯೆಂದು. ನಿನ್ನ ಲೀಲೆಗಳೇ ಹೇಳುತ್ತಿವೆ ನನ್ನ ಒಲಿದೆಯೆಂದು, ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಕಾಯಲು ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸಿ ಕಾಡುತ್ತಿರುವೆಯೆಂದು. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ಕಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ನೂಕಿ ರಕ್ಷಿಸುವ ಸಂಚುಗಾರ ನೀನು, ನಾವಿಕ ನಿರದಾನವೈದು ದಡಕ್ಕೆ ತಂದೆ ನೀನು. ಕಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ನೂಕಿ ರಕ್ಷಿಸುವ ಸಂಚುಗಾರ ನೀನು, ನಾವಿಕ ನಿರದಾನವೈದು ದಡಕ್ಕೆ ತಂದೆ ನೀನು. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ನನಗೂ ಅರಿಯದ ಪೂರ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸುವ ಪರಿಯ, ಯೋಚಿಸಿ ಹೂಡಿದೆ ತಂತ್ರವನು ಅರಿಯನೆ ಗುರುವಿನ ದಯೆಯ. ನನಗೂ ಅರಿಯದ ಪೂರ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸುವ ಪರಿಯ, ಯೋಚಿಸಿ ಹೂಡಿದೆ ತಂತ್ರವನು ಅರಿಯನೆ ಗುರುವಿನ ದಯೆಯ. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು. ಶರಣು ಬಂದೆನೋ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ನಾನು. ನನ್ನೀ ಬಾಳಿನ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಪರಿಹರಿಸೋ ಭಾನು. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We move on to the part of the satsang where we have a reading and a sharing by Sri Nandakumarji, and he has been reading from one of our publications from Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, Forever in the Now.
Namo Ramana.
Forever is
In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue to read from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We are coming towards the end of the anthology. Not purely an anthology, but also some contributions by the founder president himself, giving a sequence to the three portions. And in this final segment, the confluence, today we are beginning with a window for stillness. Swami Dayananda, the introduction to Swamiji, is head of Arsha Vidya Pita. He is also known as Swami Dayanand Saraswati, head of Arsha Vidya Pita. He has written a commentary on Ramana's Upadesa Saram. The contribution is A Window for Stillness, Swami Dayananda. I have never seen Bhagavan Ramana in person. My introduction to Ramana was through Yogi Ramaya. Yogi Ramaya, of course, is a great tapaswin who starts out with Rama Mantra and comes to Bhagavan and learns self-enquiry. There are references in the talks about Yogi Ramaya, and Swamiji has come to Bhagavan through Yogi Ramaya. He talked of Bhagavan more in silence than in words. I understood Ramana as one I could never be away from. I understood Ramana as one I could never be away from. In those days, when I was struggling to find the ground under my feet, Ramana was my hope as well as the ground. I have talked about him and his works all these years, and I have always felt that I could say something more. If I had attempted to say more, perhaps I would have been silent. The beauty of Ramana is that you see him as a person, and at the same time, you don't see him as a person. He is sitting there in front of you with eyes open. You see him, and you keep seeing him, only to see that the person is but a form of something still, not captured by known words. I'll repeat that last sentence. You see him and you keep seeing him, only to see that the person is but a form of something still, not captured by known words. When you see the stillness of Ramana, you are stillness. When you see the stillness of Ramana, you are stillness. For how can you see stillness unless you yourself become stillness, a stillness that continues to be still in spite of the movement of thoughts, of limbs, of events. When you see the stillness of Ramana, you are stillness. or how can you see stillness unless you yourself become stillness, a stillness that continues to be still in spite of the movements of thoughts, of limbs, of events. Ramana's figure, his name, is a window for that stillness. Ramana's figure, the Rupa, his name, the Nama, is a window for that stillness, silence. You can look through that window, not merely for 100 years, but for all time to come. Forever is in the now. You can look through that window, not merely for 100 years, but for all time to come. You need no change, no turning away of the head. What a window! What a scene! The Nama and Rupa of Bhagavan automatically opens us up to that stillness, says Swamiji. A letter from France, Pascaline Mallet. Mallet Pascaline, author of the book Turn Eastward, which had been appreciated by Bhagavan. A letter from France by Pascaline Mallet. Lady Bateman came here with her daughter to visit Sri Bhagavan. She brought a letter dated 21st November 1938 from Pascaline Mallet, Versailles, which reads as follows. Pascaline Mallet writes, and the letter is brought to the ashram by Lady Bateman, and it is read in the hall. The letter goes like this. 2 years have come and gone since I last crossed the threshold of thy ashram, and yet, in spirit, I have ever remained there. Though illusion often veils the vision of reality, revealed in the silence of your blessed presence, though the silver thread of self-awareness be lost midst changing light and shadows, still the inner urge to realize the self remains and grows stronger and more insistent as grace and search go hand in hand. At times, yet rare, with no apparent cause, the spontaneous awareness of I springs up and bliss fills the heart with glowing warmth. Effortless concentration goes with this state, while all desires do come to a rest fulfilled in utmost peace, till once more the veil is drawn and illusion seeks to blur the vision of the real. Yet, what the soul has experienced and knows repeatedly as truth can neither be denied nor ever forgotten. And that which is gives constant strength to persevere. I pray to thee as to myself for light and guidance that I know are ever there, and I at thy feet lay the offerings of unchanging love. The last two paragraphs, I'll read again, where the lady is reiterating that the anubhava she is having there and the movement towards grace. Yet, what the soul has experienced and knows repeatedly as truth can neither be denied nor ever forgotten. And that which is gives constant strength to persevere. I pray to thee as to myself for light and guidance that I know are ever there, and at thy feet lay the offerings of unchanging love. The next article is by Swami Muktanandaji of Ganeshpuri Ashram, the disciple of Swami Nityananda of Ganeshpuri of those days. Maharishi Sri Ramana is the title given. The introduction to the writer is Swami Muktananda spearheaded the Siddha meditation movement through his ashram in Ganeshpuri. Maharishi Sri Ramana, Swami Muktanandaji. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi was a great saint who always occupied a high place of reverence in the minds of people. His divine personality endeared him to all beings. The word Ramana means one who plays. Rameti iti Ramana. You may call him Atman or Guru. Both are synonyms indicating the same divine power of which this universe is a game. Maharishi Ramana was a divine soul, completely detached, beyond all differences, highly self-restrained, and playfully living in the ocean of transcendental consciousness, the state of Turiya Tita. I had the good fortune to be in his company just for 3 days. Even during the short stay, I found that anyone entering his presence, even for a moment, would experience the state of a fully realized soul in a transcendental state beyond all thoughts. Some believed him to be a Siddha or a great saint, and some believed him to be an incarnation of God. From the Vedantic point of view, all are one in essence. God himself appears in the world as the Siddha. So the Siddha is God, and he is manifest as Bhagavan Ramana, the spirit at play. Anyone going even once to Maharishi Ramana felt as if the Maharishi belonged to him. This was because he really belonged to everyone and everyone to him. Wearing only a loincloth, he used to sit relaxed on a sofa, but still he looked more attractive than even the most richly attired princess, because as my revered Guru, Gurudev Nityanandaji used to say, Maharishi Ramana was beyond body consciousness, beyond all attributes, and beyond dualities. I'll read that paragraph again. Wearing only a loincloth, he used to sit relaxed on a sofa, but still he looked more attractive than even the most richly attired princess, because as my revered Gurudev Nityananda used to say, Maharishi Ramana was beyond body consciousness, beyond all attributes, and beyond dualities. This indicates that he was on a plane far above body, pain and pleasure, a plane inaccessible to ordinary mortals. Realization of the self was all important in his teachings. To everyone who asked, he unhesitatingly gave the advice to meditate on the self, worship the self, and know the self. This is because, according to Vedanta, there is nothing worth knowing, hearing, or seeing except one's true self. One who was and is Ramana is this true eternal truth, beyond all time, having neither beginning nor end. Therefore, the path in quest of truth shown by him will remain accessible to all for a long time to come, because he proclaimed absolute truth which remains unobstructed at all times, in all places, and under all conditions. His message appears to some the oldest among the old, to others the newest of the new. Actually, it is ancient and modern at the same time, because the concept of old and new are imposed on the self by others, while it is really ageless and eternal. Some people call the present times a new age, but according to the Maharishi, all things, old or new, are projections of the same eternal truth. Those who loved the Maharishi got from him the true supreme bliss attained by means of jnana, knowledge, yoga, spiritual discipline, and bhakti, devotion. This means that from him one got the essence of all the spiritual practices. That is why I call him one who plays Rameti iti Ramana. He is the ever adorable great soul, my adorations to him. I'll read the last few lines. Actually, Bhagavan's teachings, he says, actually it is old and new. It is ancient and modern at the same time, because the concepts of old and new are imposed on the self by others, while it is really ageless and eternal. Some people call the present times a new age, but according to the Maharishi, all things, old or new, are projections of the same eternal truth. Those who loved the Maharishi got from him the true supreme bliss attained by means of jnana, knowledge, yoga, spiritual discipline, and bhakti, devotion. This means that from him one got the essence of all spiritual practices. That is why I call him one who plays Rameti iti Ramana. He is the ever adorable great soul. My adorations to him, says Swami Muktananda. We continue the readings, probably the last part of it, in the coming week. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We move on to the self-enquiry session conducted by Shri Dileep Simha ji.
ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युताप पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. Namo Ramana. We will commence the Atma Vicharam by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham, and I will be reading his Upadesham from the book Guruvachaka Kovai in the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic for the evening is the marvel of Maya, verse 621. While reality remains as one, without taking birth as many, is it not a wonder that it manifests as if it is many, appears to embrace good and bad karma by turns, attains from time immemorial to the present day, the four types of births in the seven species, and eventually triumphs and attains liberation. I repeat the verse. While reality remains as one, without taking birth as many, is it not a wonder that it manifests as if it is many, appears to embrace good and bad karma by turns, attains from time immemorial to the present day the four types of births in the seven species, and eventually triumphs and attains liberation. In this verse, Bhagavan is saying that it is the truth which is one and one alone, somehow wondrously imagines and appears as many, and seems to go through lot of transformation in form and in doing and in knowing, and from time immemorial, because the truth itself, as Nandakumarji read out, it is something eternal. So does this wondrous manifestation, imagination of that truth also seems to be time immemorial and continues from that time to date, to this very second. And it seems to go through many births in four types of births and many species, but eventually the truth alone triumphs. Satyameva Jayate. The truth alone triumphs and becomes free of all this imagination, free of its own wondrous imagination. And because the imagination starts in the form of a thought, Bhagavan asks us to diligently inquire every thought, no matter what kind of thought it is, whether it is a good thought, a bad thought, a very ugly thought, or a spiritual thought, by the thinker, since the thinker, the first and the foremost division has happened, which if we don't inquire, will continue in many other wondrous thinking in the same line of the previous thoughts or in a new line through a new thought. So Bhagavan asks us to diligently inquire every thought. And when we inquire to whom is this thought, the thinker, I, is revealed. I am the one who is thinking. Thereupon, when we inquire, who am I, and trace the thinker, the I thought, back to its source, then and there we see the ever-present eternal truth, which has never gone through any transformation, ever-present, ever shining as the fullness of awareness, and ever blissful because of the absence of division. And by repeatedly diving back to that one truth, Bhagavan assures that all the vasanas, which are very much held in the heart itself, is not given any more attention. The attention is repeatedly turned to the self. Atmanishto bhava, says Bhagavan. And by repeated Atmanishtata, which Bhagavan brings through the inquiry, who am I, by his abundant grace, the mind will gain enough strength to remain at the source and to be eternally happy in that one self, having merged itself in it. Until such time, Bhagavan says, we should inquire every thought. As long as these thoughts continue to bother us, we should inquire with every rising thought, to whom is this, who am I? With the abundant grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path, which establishes the path establishes us here and now in that eternal truth. With the abundant grace of Bhagavan, for the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji. He has been sharing his manana on the work by Sri Shankara Atma Bodha, which has been translated to Tamil by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. And we have the sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji.
Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Dhyanamoolam Gurur Murti, Pujamulam Gurur Padam, Mantramulam Gururvakyam, Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa. Namo Ramana. We're doing Manana on Atma Bodha, and I'm reading from Swami Parthasarthi's notes, which Nandakumar kindly gave to me. So in the first verse, we understood the following are the 4 qualifications prescribed for an ideal student. First one was annihilation of sins through the practice of austerities. Second was calmness of the mind. Third was freedom from desires. And fourth was yearning for liberation. So those are 4 things that are needed. So the second verse that we touched upon was, of all the spiritual disciplines, knowledge of self is verily the direct means for liberation. Just as fire is for cooking, liberation cannot be attained without knowledge of the self. So with this, we will go to the verse number 3, and I request Sapna to kindly chant the verse number 3.
Yes, sir. अविरोधितया कर्मणा अविद्यां विनिवर्तयेत् विद्या अविद्यां निहन्ति एव ते जहतिमिरसङ्घवत् अविरोधितया कर्मणा अविद्यां विनिवर्तयेत् विद्या अविद्यां निहन्ति एव ते जहतिमिरसङ्घवत्. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. Action cannot destroy ignorance, as it is not opposed to ignorance. Knowledge alone destroys ignorance, as light destroys dense darkness. This is a very significant verse. Karma here refers to all our religious practices. So important thing is very important to be able to understand difference between the religious practices and spiritual practices. So what's being said here is karma here refers to all the religious practices. Vidya signifies knowledge. realization of the Supreme Self. The Self is the core of your personality. It is your essential nature. It has only to be realized when you are with a purified mind through the practice of meditation. Self is said to be infinite, omnipotent, omniscient, etc. Action, karma, is finite and limited and cannot produce the knowledge of the self, vidya, which is infinite and illimitable. I'll read this very important thing that is for all of us. Is action, karma, which is finite and limited, cannot produce the knowledge of the self, vidya, which is infinite. The ritualistic portion of the Vedas is called Karmakanda. The religious practitioners in the past initially performed the rituals performed in the Karmakanda to purify and strengthen their minds. Thus, equipped with a mind chastened through rituals, they took to a deeper study of the Upanishads and practiced meditation. But in the context of the modern world, these rituals could be equated to selfless work, nishkama karma, dedicated to a higher ideal in life. Such dedicated work purifies the mind and renders it fit for meditation and realization of the self. Like Swami Shivananda also says, serve, love, give, purify. Important thing is purification. Then you meditate and then you realize. So same thing you said here also. But in the context of the modern world, these rituals could be equated to selfless work dedicated to a higher ideal in life. Such dedicated work purifies the mind and renders it fit for meditation and realization of the self. Not understanding action to be a means to an end, many aspirants get involved in their action and cling to it as an end in itself. So many of us think we should do Nishkama Karma, yes, but what is being said, get involved in their action and cling to it as an end in itself. So it's not an end in itself. Here you are cautioned not to get attached to action. You must use action as a means to reach the ultimate goal of realization. So you must, all the karma, bhakti, Raja Yoga, as well as Jnana Yoga should be, you must use action in this case as a means to reach the ultimate goal of realization. Action is executed by the physical body. Physical actions arise from thoughts. Thoughts arise from the ignorance of self, avidya. Consequently, where there is action, there is bound to be ignorance causing it. Action is a gross form of ignorance. This is a it's a really punchline. Action is a gross form of ignorance. How then can gross action karma remove its subtler form, that is the ignorance of the self or avidya? Action, therefore, is not an antidote for ignorance of self. Action cannot remove ignorance. Knowledge of self alone can destroy ignorance. In the analogy of the post and the ghost, a post is mistaken in the dark for a ghost. It's like the same thing that we talk about, the rope and the snake. So here it talks about the post and the ghost. A post is mistaken in the dark for a ghost. Therefore, the illusion of the ghost continues with its attendant fears and anxieties until the post is recognized. The knowledge of the post alone can remove the ignorance of the post, which causes the ghost illusion. The knowledge of the post is said to be an antidote for the ignorance of post. Similarly, apprehension of reality and not action. I'll read this again. Similarly, apprehension of reality and not action is the antidote which removes the non-apprehension of reality. The metaphor of light removing darkness is apt and illustrative. Imagine an unexplored cave remaining for long in dense darkness. The moment you bring in light into the cave, the darkness vanishes. The darkness may be very dense and existing there for long periods of time, yet it disappears instantly when the first ray of light enters the cave. Similarly, when the knowledge of the self Similarly, with the knowledge of the self, your ignorance vanishes, however dense and long it may be. This should satisfy those who believe they are too gross and sinful to seek spiritual redemption. So many of us think, oh, look at our karma. If you look at our past life, this life itself, you think, oh, I am such a sinner. I've done so many bad deeds. And I'm not fit for self realization. Bhagavan says, look at this particular example, beautiful example, that there's a cave and there's darkness been there for hundreds of years, hundreds and thousands of years, and you take a little light inside, and suddenly what happens to all the darkness? It vanishes. So exactly the same thing. When he says cave, it means our own heart. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram. So the heart which we have not explored, the heart has been in darkness. So the trick is, when you keep doing self-enquiry, what happens? You are lighting this, putting a little light into this cave of your heart. And once the light goes into the cave of the heart, then what happens to the darkness? Darkness vanishes. The ignorance vanishes. When there's ignorance vanishes, you're in light. So that's what beautifully said by this example. And that's what we all have to do, is to do self-enquiry and inquire who we really are. The more we do self-enquiry, Nishkama karma is good, but it helps only in purification. Purification brings what? It brings ekagrata. It comes to single pointedness. It's good, but it's not the ultimate. Important thing is, as we keep doing inquiry, the ghost will go away and we will be the post. And the post is who you really are. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
Thank you.
We move on to the next part of the satsang, where we have a sharing by Dr. Kalarani Rengasamy on the text Devika Lotram Jnana Vichara Padalam.
ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலம். Nammo Ramana to all. With the abundance days of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagavan in Tamil. And in the last satsang we saw Bhagavan saying, the moment one gets rid of his body consciousness, he needs nothing else in this world. He sees everything as Brahma, as Atma, nothing other than the Atma. தன்னை தேகம் இலனாகவே தன் ஞான கண்ணினால் காண்பான். At that very moment, அன்றே அனைத்திலும் ஆசை அறவிட்டு, all his desires vanishes. At the very moment he realizes that he is not this body alone. Then what remains? Only Shanti. Shanti தனை புண்ணியோன் ஆவன் தான். So the root cause of all our dukkha is body consciousness. Yatra yatra sharira, tatra tatra dukkha, says Shankara. Because with the body consciousness, we have expectations. I want to become that, this. I want to be like that person. For that matter, no one can become like any other person. He has to be like himself only. I'll tell you an example. There was a farmer plowing his land and he was very much frustrated about the job he was doing. And he was lamenting, I could have become something else, maybe a driver, so that I need not have stand in this dirty mud. Suddenly, a Devaduta appeared and asked him what for he was lamenting. He said, I don't want to be a farmer. I want to become something else. Okay, don't cry. I will give you a mantra. If you chant that mantra, you can become whatever you want to become. Oh, thank you so much, he said. But remember one thing, this will work only for 6 times. After that, you cannot change yourself. You have to remain what you are. Okay, that will do. Thank you. He immediately chanted that mantra and became a car driver. He felt so happy. Now he is out of the dirty mud. But the traffic in the city is very high. He could not manage to drive at all. For crossing one signal, he has to wait for hours together. He got fed up. He thought only the road traffic is very heavy. Let me become a pilot. That was also good for some time. But this mind does not keep quiet, isn't it? It started murmuring. Oh God, 80% of my life, 80% of time, I am in a yard only. I could not get time to spend with my family. My wife, my children are also angry with me. Oh God, this job does not suit me at all. Any white-collar job, sitting on a chair or table will do. He chanted the mantra and got a job in a government office. He was doing his job with great satisfaction till he met his friend who was working in IT. He was attracted by the salary that his friend was getting. So with the help of mantra, he became an IT professional and got very good salary. But the work was very heavy. He has to obey his team leaders, seniors, whatnot. And he was called for meetings at odd hours. Nothing was in his hand. He could not plan anything. Now his mind thought, oh, how independent I was plowing my land. I decided whether to work today or not. I think I had a very good time when I was a farmer. Now Devadutta came in front of him and asked him, would you like to become the farmer again? He said, I think I want to become farmer again. Yes, now chant the mantra. But that will be the last chance for me. It's okay, I want to become and I want to plow my land as farmer. But what happened? After taking a great round in the world, he ended up with plowing in the mud only. So, Bhagavan says, be as you are. For that, one has to be out of the body consciousness. When Bhagavan was in Annamalai, small children used to come and play with Bhagavan. And at that time, they used to ask, why don't you go for a job? If you want, I can ask my father to recommend for you. Then only you will get money to buy good food. Bhagavan used to give a smile and keep quiet. For a realized soul, where comes the thought of food and shelter? Whatever comes to them, they will accept it because they are not bothered about the body. So, no wants and no desires. The next stanza, Bhagavan explains, who is this I, which we are often using? I did that, and I will come, I will go, I will take care of you. In what authority we say like this? Because we strongly believe that this body is I. But in Ullanapade, Bhagavan raises the question beautifully. Na udambo. Is this the body I? Then who am I? In this stanza of Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, Bhagavan explains, Ella Nurkalilum Asan Isan Yendri Yardan Isekappaduvano. That Paravastu, which does not have any birth, and which is the Ishvara, which gives life for the whole universe, and which is very much present in each and every object in the universe, is spoken very high in Shastras. When Bhagavan speaks about the omnipotent state and all perceiveness of Paravastu, says that Vastu, though present both inside and outside of all objects, does not have any sarira of its own, nor does the Vastu has any guna of its own. Yendrum asarirana gunamilan. Then who is that he? Who is that Vastu about whom Bhagavan is talking about? Yes. Anmavam avane yan. Bhagavan says, Anmavam avane yan. He is none other than Anma. And please don't have any doubt in this. In answering to a question, Bhagavan beautifully said in another occasion, don't think over the doubt, but the doubter. Fine. Who is this I which is doubting? Who is the doubter? Siridum ingu idanil ayyam illai. So Bhagavan says, don't have any doubt in what I said. Accept it as such. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. At this part of the satsang, we were meditating on the Ramanacentre written by Ganapati Muni and which has been compiled and given this title Ramanacentre by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi himself, and we were on the 21st verse of Ramanacentre. Janmasthanamavapya gupta mahamoyo bhedamaadutavan bhutanam charatam pritagvidadiyam atmaiva yobhasate deham sarvamidam jagatcha vibhavadakram yayat prolasat ekastam gurumurtimanamatare lambodara brataram Ramanaya loka gurave namaha Ramanaya loka gurave namaha Janmasthana ahammina gaupya tilidu bedagala toredava ನಾನಾವಿಧ ಸ್ಥಾವರ ಜಂಗಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆತ್ಮವಾಗಿ ಬೆಳಗುವವ ದೇಹವನು ಸಕಲ ಜಗವನು ತನ್ನ ವೈಭವದಿ ಆಕ್ರಮಿಸಿ ಹೊಳೆವವ ಆ ಗುರುಮೂರ್ತಿಗೆ ನಮಿಸಿ ಮಾನವರೇ ಗಣಪತಿಯ ಭ್ರಾತನವ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. Ganapati Muni says, Ramana is that Guru Murti. He is that divine who is all pervading. He is the supreme Brahman. But that supreme Brahman, that self which shines as everything, it, out of its compassion, it has manifested as the Guru Murti amidst us. And to show us who we really are, he played the Leela of Jnanodaya and he inquired the Janmasthana of the Aham. From where does this I thought arise? He enacted the Leela of Jnanodaya at Madurai as a boy of 16. He was suddenly gripped by a fear of death and he realized that there was no use or there was no escape from this fear, and there was no use approaching somebody from outside, a friend or a relative or a doctor, but he decided to face death and find out what was the true meaning of death. And then he lied down on the ground with hands and legs stiff as if a rigor mortis was set, and he lay down like a corpse and he did not utter anything, not even the word I. And at that moment he had the experience that the body was dead. Body did not have any movement, and this body which was dead and had become a corpse would be taken to the cremation ground and would be burnt and reduced to ashes. Even when the body was reduced to ashes, there was something else which was apart from the body, which was shining brightly like the dynamo. That Shakti, that Avesham, that power which is shining within me, that is my true nature. And I am not this limited body. This truth was realized by that 16-year-old young sage, and the boy Venkatraman was no more. A sage of undying wisdom was born. And how did he come to this truth? By inquiring the truth that from where does this I arises? Where is that power which makes everything possible by this body, which makes every understanding possible? That power is I. And that is the true Janmasthana from where the I arises, and it manifests itself as the various thoughts and action. So Ramana says, every thought and action rises from this source, this dynamo which is there shining within each one of us. And he says, whenever the thought arises, this attention of that light is moving outward. So whenever a thought arises, ask the question, for whom is this thought? And turn the attention back to the source with the question, who am I? When this question is held upon with diligently, Ramana says this who am I is a thought which will burn all other thoughts, just like the wooden piece which is used to burn the fire. And once all the wood in the fire are burnt, even this thought, who am I, also gets burned and disappears, and then the true self alone shines brightly. And that shining, ever shining, continuous I is our own true nature. That is the Janmasthana of this limited I thought, from which various other thoughts arises. Even the thought that one is this body, one in this name, one is this form, or one is this idea, all these arises only from the I thought. And this I thought is powered by one more supreme power which is shining within you. That is the Janmasthana of the I thought. So Ramana says, enter that heart in the Arunachala Pancharatnam. Ramana says, enter the heart with Amala Madi, with pure mind, without any other thoughts. Ask the question, who am I? And enter the heart. That is your Janmasthana. Ramana, who had understood his Janmasthana and had understood his own true nature, had come to a realization that every being in this universe is only that power, and there is nothing apart from that power. That power alone shines all the time. In his Ekan Panchagam, he says, Yappodum ullado ekanma vastuve, ullado ekanma vastuve. What exists all the time is only one ekanma vastu, and there is nothing else which is apart from it. And to teach us this truth, to understand that we are all made up of the same material, we are all that divine stuff, he has come in the human form, in the form of the Guru Murti, and is revealing this truth. There is a story which we heard from Sri Nandakumarji, where he says there was a carpenter and he planned to take his little son to an exhibition, a museum which had beautiful wooden carvings and wooden sculptures. And they entered the first floor. It was divided into various sections. They entered the first section. When the little boy entered the first section, he saw huge ferocious lions and wild elephants and alligators and huge monsters which were made of wood. And that little boy was really afraid, and he told, Appa, I don't want to come see anything in this museum. Everything looks very, very scary. And the father, who was a carpenter, he told, don't worry, we will go to the next section. Maybe you will like the sculptures in that section. So they moved to that other section where they saw beautiful sculptures of flowers and trees and bushes with beautiful birds and peacocks and rabbits and deers, beautiful people playing around, and there were sculptures of beautiful dancers, beautiful musicians who were sitting in the posture of singing. And the boy was mesmerized, and he was so attracted to the fine craftsmanship of those sculptures. And the father told, Come, let us go close to them and find out what is the material these sculptures are made of. And then when they moved close to the sculptures, the boy touched one of the sculptures and he told his father, Appa, these are all made up of wood. The same wood that you work with and make furnitures and beautiful carvings. That is the same material that they have used to make these all beautiful sculptures and images. And the father told, yes, not only these sculptures, even the sculptures in the first section that we saw were made of the same material. So come, let us go back to that first section and enjoy the beauty which is there in those wooden sculptures. And the boy thoroughly enjoyed that section too. This says that when we understand what is the material, what is the Janmasthana of ourselves, then there is only joy. Everything is same, everything is one and the same. But when we think we are this limited body, limited idea, limited concept of ourselves, then the concept which we are not becomes very, very fearful. And that which we think we are, which belongs to us, brings us joy. So these division only brings sorrow. So Ramana says, find out who you are. When you really find out who you are, you will understand that the whole universe is run by that same power. And when we see the world with that vision of jnana, then we see there is only joy, there is only that divine power everywhere. When Ramana was asked, Ramana, Who are you? Are you Shiva? Are you Brahma? Are you Sanaka Sanandana? Who are you? Are you Subramanya? In a Malayalam verse by a devotee, Ramana replied in the answer in another Malayalam verse where he says, Hariyadiya Parajivadahara Neeraja Guhayil Arivairami Paramatmane Arunachala Ramanan Paramadara Paranai Hridi Paranar Noru Guhayarn Arivamili Turani Nijamariya Idu Veliyam. Arunachala Ramana is that one, that light which shines as pure consciousness starting from Hari in all the beings. And if one melts in love and he enters the heart cave, Hridaya Guha, there that beloved shines as the pure consciousness, that Arunachala Ramana shines as the pure intellect, says Bhagavan Ramana. And Ganapati Muni says the same thing, that Ramana, who had understood the secret of the Janmasthana, then he understood that he is the Atma. So as the Atma, he shined as Arunachala Ramana. He shined as the Atma, as the pure consciousness in all beings, starting from Hari. Bhutanam charatam pritag vidadiyam atmaivayo bhasate. And that very light, that very pure consciousness which shines in every being, it has manifested in the form of a guru to teach us this very truth, to teach us the secret of getting back to our Janmasthana. When we get back to the Janmasthana, we understand that the Atma alone exists, and there is no sorrow and there is no fear, but there is only and only bliss. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. In the next part of the satsang, we have a sharing by Dr. Sarada on the verses from Vishwanatha Swami's Ramana Ashtottara.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana. In this part of today's satsang, we dwell on the namas of Vishwanatha Swami on Bhagavan Ramana in Ramana Ashtottram. Today, we are dwelling on the nama Mahayogine Namaha, following the nama Udasinaya Namaha, then Mahayogine Namaha, and we go on to Mahotsahaya Namaha. The namas Udasina and Mahotsaha are in contrast with one another. We see Udasina, absolutely indifferent to everything. Totally indifferent to everything, even the highest. We find in shloka of Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada, he talks of Anatma Shri Nigarhanam, absolute indifference towards or meaninglessness of anything that is not the self. And in that he says, even if you have attained to the state of the Lord of Kailasa, Shambhor Loke Shasito, even if you are ruling over the world of Lord Shiva, if you're not abiding in the self. So what is there? Bhagavan says in his Atma Vidya Kirtanam, he says, தன்னை அறிதல் இன்றி பின்னை எதறிகிலன். What is the use of knowing? தன்னை அறிதல் இன்றி பின்னை எதறிகிலன். தன்னை அறிந்த பின் என்னது உளதறிய. What is there to be known once the self is known? Without knowing the self, knowing anything else is futile. And if one knows the self, what else is there to be known? What else is there to be enjoyed? In his Ashtakam, he says, that is, you are then the emperor. Or Kodai Needar Kove, you are the emperor of everything that is. If there is anything that is apart from the self, if we say there is a world, if there is a manifest world, if there are all these things to be seen, if there is a universe and if there are galaxies and if there are solar systems, millions of them, you are the emperor of all that, says Bhagavan, when you are abiding in the self. If you are aware of the self, if you are abiding in the self, you are an emperor of all this. Then what should you be interested in? Bhagavan has said to Ganapati Muni once, he says, Nayana, if all all the planets and the stars and everything are revolving around my waist, my hip, who am I? If the entire universe is revolving around your waist, who are you? You're the emperor of the universe. For such a one, what does anything matter? Udasina, absolutely indifferent. The third nama, Mahotsaha. Mahotsaha, the one with the greatest enthusiasm. The greatest enthusiasm. Ganeshanana once shared that Vishwanatha Swami told him about Bhagavan's guidance to him. Since Bhagavan told Vishwanatha Swami, you must treat the entire universe as if it were a mere speck of dust. The entire universe as if it were a mere speck of dust. And you must be able to treat each grain of sand, each grain of the earth, each speck of dust as if it is the whole universe. So it is, he is Udasina and he is Mahotsaha. He is full of enthusiasm for everything. But for his enthusiasm, he who is the creator and the sustainer of the entire universe, Bhagavan says in Arunachala Pancharatnam, Bhutva Tvai Arunachala Sarvam Bhutva Stitva. This entire, and of course Pralina, it also emerges into you. It is created in you, it is sustained in you, it merges into you. So when it dissolves also, when anything dissolves, he is Udasina. He is not worried. He is not worried by the endings. He is not worried by the changes. He is not worried by the difficulties which arise, which will end. Because Pralina Metat Chitram, he is not worried. He is Udasina. He is unconcerned about all the movements of the earth. We have seen that Udasina Ramana, we are seeing him in the course of this narration at that point in the biography. If we look at Ashtottara as a biographical narration, we see Bhagavan totally indifferent to his body. Totally, absolutely. From the moment of his leaving home, in that journey at Patala Lingam, afterwards in the temple and later at Gurumurtam. But then we can see that Bhagavan has been Udasina always, totally unconcerned. And if we look forward, we can see his total indifference, that Udasina Bhava in the last few years when the body was racked with sarcoma. He allowed everyone, all the devotees, to do with the body what they willed, as if it was something else, as if it was someone else. So many people have narrated how they have had the good fortune of having his darshan in those days. And Mani Anna recently, in his sharing with us, he said how he just chanced, he was allowed to go and see Bhagavan after the operation. When the scalpel had cut the flesh, the wound was raw, but it was clean, says Mani Anna. Clean. It had been cut, operated, so it was clean. It was raw, and Bhagavan was just looking into infinity. Absolutely looking into infinity. Mani Anna also shared with us that when he went to a doctor for his eczema, the doctor, the expert, laughed and said, "It is inherited. Bhagavan had eczema. You have inherited it from your grandfather." So Bhagavan had eczema, says Mani Anna. So many problems here in the body, not one or two. So many difficulties. But Udasina, completely Udasina, not only to the body. He who is so loving, the very incarnation of Karuna, he was Udasina also to whatever happened in the world. Plague had come when Bhagavan was there. So many would have died. Twice plague had come. Second time, the ashram inmate Annamalai Swami also passed away. Mother Adagamma was distraught, but Bhagavan accepted it. And then the world war happened. Bhagavan knew it was going to happen. He told devotees, go back, go back. He told Mercedes D'Acosta, I think, go back to America. There is going to be something which will be called the war. You need to be there at that time. You cannot be here. He told Poonjaji, go back to Punjab. Your family will need you. Because of the partition which was to happen. World events of, we cannot even stomach a thought of it, but Bhagavan Udasita. But Mahotsaha, so full of enthusiasm that he could play with the little children who went to him. He could play marbles with them. He could play with the peacocks or the monkeys or every little creature, full of enthusiasm because he was full of enthusiasm for the self. Kanakamma says that Bhagavan said, never be indifferent to anything. In the sense of carelessness, not indifference to the entire world. Be indifferent to the entire universe, but do not be indifferent to a few things. Do not be careless. Do not say, oh, that does not matter. Ashraddha. Kanakama said, Ashraddha. There should not be Ashraddha about anything whatsoever, says Bhagavan, because if you have Ashraddha about even one thing, you might become indifferent, you might become careless about the sadhana of abiding in the self. Therefore, have the greatest enthusiasm for every moment, every job, everything that is done. Mahotsaha. And who can be both Udasina and Mahotsaha at the same time? Vishwanatha Swami tells us it is the Mahayogi. It is the Mahayogi. Who is the Mahayogi? It is Shiva. Yati Varano, in that composition which Ujwal quoted today, the answer of Bhagavan to a devotee is asking him, who are you, Ramana? In asking, the question is, in the question, Hariyo, Yati Varano, are you Hari? Are you Yati Vara? Yati Vara means the king of yogis. Who is the king of yogis? It is Lord Shiva, who is referred to as the king of yogis, because we see Shiva, and we see Shiva with absolute, the Udasina also is, we saw it is like Shiva, totally indifferent to how he appears, and yet so magnificent, so beautiful. That Shiva, we see him, most of the depictions of Shiva is in meditation, is in that state of Mahayoga. Mahayogi also means yoga is union with the self. The one who is ever in union with the self. We also looked at the encounter with Achyutadasa at the time of Gurumurtam days, and he said, where can we find one who is ever abiding, ever, not a moment wavering from that state, not a moment wavering. That Mahayogi, C.N. Shastri, one of the poet composers of Karnataka, he sings, Yogi Ramana Parama Guruve, Yogi Ramana Parama Guruve, Tyagiyuni Sukha Shantiyuni ne Bhogiya Hridayadi Rajipe Nine Tyaga Bhoga Sukha Datanu Nine. Yogi Sukha Shanti, Yogi Udasina, Sukha Shanti Mahotsaha. The Nataraja Tandava, the dance of bliss. That is Mahotsaha, the Shiva dancing in bliss. The Mahayogi Shiva, absolutely indifferent. Tyaga Bhoga Sukha Dhatanu Nine. You are the giver, O Ramana, of the bliss of Tyaga, Udasina. You are the giver, O Ramana, of the bliss of Bhoga. For the devotees, you give them everything that is needed in life. Mahotsaha, the one who gives us the joy of life, the one who is the joy of life, the one who is the wonderment, the one who is the amazing variety of his creation, as again Ujwal was talking about the manifestation described by Ganapati Muni. So he is the one who is the indifferent, not because he does not care, but because there is something which far surpasses all the experiences that we have in the limited universe. One who remains ever in union with that, and one who also blesses us with the great joy of enjoying all things as Ramana. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri.
Namo Ramana. We come to the last part of the satsang. We have the chanting of Bhagavan Ramana's Arunachala Aksharamanamalai, a few verses by Kumari Revathi Shankar. This will be followed by the Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan at Sri Dileep Simhaji's altar, and the chanting of Ashtottara will be done by Vaibhavji, Prarthana, Uma and Ashwini, and the Aarti song will be sung by Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. வீடு விட்டீர் துள வீடு புக்கு பைய உன் வீடு காட்டினை அருள் அருணாச்சலா. வெளிவிட்டேன் உன் செயல் வெறுத்திடாதுன் அருள் வெளிவிட்டேன் தென்னை காருணாச்சலா வேதாந்தத்தே வேரற விளங்கும் வேத பொருளருளருணாச்சலா வைதலை வாழ்த்தா வைத்தருட்குடியா வைத்தென்னை விடாதருளருணாச்சலா அம்புவிலாலி போல் அன்புருவு நிலனை அன்பாக்கரை தருளருணாச்சலா அருணை என்றெண்ணையான் அருட்கண்ணில் பட்டேன் உன் அருள்வலை தப்புமோ அருணாச்சலா சிந்தி தருட்பட சிலந்தி போல் கட்டி சிறையேட்டுண்டனை அருணாச்சலா அன்போடு நாமங்கேளன்பர் தமன்பரு கண்பனாயிட அருளருணாச்சலா என் போலும் தீனரை இன்புற காத்து நீ எந்நாளும் வாழ்ந்தருளருணாச்சலா என் குரு கண்பர்த்தம் என் சொற்கொள் செவியுமென் புன்மொழி கொள அருளருணாச்சலா பொறுமையாம் பூதர புன் சொல்லை நன் சொல்லால் பொறுத்தருள் இஷ்டம் பின் அருணாச்சலா மாலை அளித்தருணாச்சல ரமண என் மாலை அணிந்தருளருணாச்சலா மாலை அளித்தருணாச்சல ரமண என் மாலை அணிந்தருளருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமண.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थळे लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः. ॐ महायोगिने नमः. ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः. ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ सपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितशलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणस्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्छिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात्मन्दमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रह सुप्रवाह विवशस्ताधात्म्य भावंगतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीर नित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ। ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ। ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Thank you, Dileepa.